Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Beatles. As of today, we've got two brand new releases or re-releases. Actually, it's a little bit of both, and we'll talk about that as we go along tonight. Now, these two albums, the Red and the Blue album, were the brainchild of the Beatles manager, Alan Klein. Now, Alan Klein never met a cash cow that he couldn't exploit. As a matter of fact, he had already done this once before with the compilation album Hey Jude. And he started thinking, well, if that worked, maybe what I ought to do is really give them something. So what he did is he multiplied that effort by 3 additional LPs. So instead of getting 1 LP like Hey Jude with 2 sides, we got 4 LPs with 8 sides. And as of today, we now have 6 LPs with 12 sides. All of this ultimately proving that even a deviant like Alan Klein can occasionally get it right. Now, one of the things I've always appreciated about the Red and the Blue albums was the running order of the songs. They seemed to fit. There was a rhythm to them. But does that still hold true? Well, I haven't lived with the album long enough. Obviously, none of us have. But what I've done is decided to break down different elements of these albums, and I'll be presenting those breakdowns in future videos, folks. But my main area of concern were the Rubber Soul tracks and the remixings of those particular songs, of course. As many of you know, I was not a fan of this album getting a remix now. I wanted Rubber Soul, my favorite Beatles album of all time. And I still think it was disrespectful to do this project before that one. But they had the Now and Then single, which, by the way, is wonderful. And I've notched it up, folks. I think this is one of the Beatles' A+ songs based on the soundtrack of the video. Close your eyes. It's a better soundtrack. It's hotter, it's more full, more expansive. And they needed somewhere to put that song on. Anthology being way too big of a project and maybe too recent of a project to remix at this juncture. But generally, with just a few listens to the Rubber Soul tracks and tracks around the Rubber Soul project, I was generally impressed as far as the stereo field being improved. But I do have a couple of areas of concern. You see, my first concern are Ringo's drums. Now, they've been centralized like they should have been to begin with, but a lot of the snap, the crackle, the pop of his playing with those horrible stereo mixes that we used to have been very much subdued. Now, my next area of concern is still with the rhythm section, Paul McCartney's bass guitar. Now, if we're talking about the notes, they are much better improved. You can hear an E versus an A in a heartbeat, okay? But much of the percussive elements of Paul's bass have been greatly subdued in these mixes. That bothers me just a bit, folks. Now, some of the highlights in those recordings are John's Nowhere Man, In My Life, and Girl. And just as impressive on first listen is Paul's Michelle, which shares a similar kind of effect with an earlier cut off the Red album, not as far as instrumentation goes, but as far as mixing the instrumentation, whatever the instrumentation is, to a better effect. And of course, I'm talking about Paul's magnificent Yesterday. On Yesterday, they actually isolated every single one in the orchestra and then split them into a stereo feel, the way it should have been to begin with. Oh, and by the way, Michelle is an excellent example of how they have subdued Paul's bass, but this time to good effect. It's better on this song to hear the notes than the actual attack of the note. It works, but not on the other tracks. Paperback Writer is an example of what I'm talking about. Paperback Writer was recorded through the speaker cabinet of Paul's bass guitar. They lined that right face to face with the amp that Paul was playing, and then they rewired that speaker to become a microphone, because basically a speaker is a microphone, only they're just wired differently. A very percussive bass, a very powerful bass, yet subdued. Matter of fact, that bothered Paul, and they would abandon this type of recording after Paperback Writer and Rain. Oh, and there's a lot of percussive lost on Day Tripper as well. All right, so that's my first look at the album at this time. Give me some more time, folks, and more videos will be coming, really tearing this release apart. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video tonight. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I always ask that, but it's for a good reason, folks. You see, when you give us thumbs up, that spreads the video through the algorithm to a wider audience. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel as of yet, that's easy. Just hit that subscribe to the tribe button, tap that top bell icon, and you'll be notified of all of my future videos. All right, I'm Michael Noland. Folks, this is the bottom line. And together, you and I, especially in the comments, we are the tribe.